Hi, welcome back to On the Town. I'm your host, Tanya Cooper, and this week's topic is Q&A on addiction and recovery. So according to New York State, there has been over 70,000 drug overdoses deaths in the U.S., and that was in 2017. So you can imagine the numbers have gone higher. Our first guest is a motivational speaker who shared his story of addiction. 25 years he has been through all of the addiction bad parts, good, bad, and the ugly, and even unfortunately lost a sister to the disease. But he attributes his sobriety to finding God and God leading him to sobriety. And now he's back to help us using his voice to help others and to answer questions on addiction and recovery. Please welcome back Justin Mantell. Hi, Justin.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
You good? Okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
I had a great day today.
Yeah. Awesome.
Got
Thank
to
you
see
so
my
much.
daughter.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a super awesome day if you saw her.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us again. And I'm going to introduce our next guest. She has been teaching others to live on life terms. She holds a BSW and is a drug and alcohol clinician. Please welcome Heather Arrigo. Hi, Heather.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. First, I want to say hello to our viewers out there. Hi, Wandra. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, T. How you guys doing? And I'm sure everybody else will be on soon. But so let's get right to the chase. So we did this special just because, as you know, in Westchester County, there is a lot of not only just addiction, but a lot of ODs going on. And it's just, I mean, I know three of in the last month right here. And they were under 40. So it's one person was like 19. It's really, really young, and it's getting younger and younger. So I figure, what can we do to help just regular people doing regular things? And so I wanted to have you both on because who knows better than someone in sobriety and someone who works in the field. So I appreciate you both for taking the time to come on. And I have a lot of viewer questions, so I better get to them if I want to get to them all. So the first one, I guess, Heather, if you could help us with this one, what is addiction? If in your layman terms for them, because I have one I could pick out of the book and give, but
So, I mean, that's such a broad question. Like, in general, the way that I view addiction, I'll say, is basically a connection. It's a connection with something, and it could be the addiction is a lot of times biological. So there's a biological aspect to it, but then there's also that habitual connection that you have with it, something that you need intervention to basically make it better.
Okay. Now, so what are some of the basic signs that we would look for if I now don't know anything about a drug addiction? And Justin, I want you to chime into this after as well. What is the first things that we would look for if we suspected a family member or a friend or a spouse was using?
Definitely behavior changes. That is the first thing when you see something that seems not quite right. If someone that you're close to has been around a lot of times, and then all of a sudden they may seem a little bit distant, mood changes, personality changes. When you've known them for a long time, it's difficult to kind of admit, okay, something's off here. But we all kind of know when someone we're close to is acting a little bit off. That's the biggest thing. There's always behavior changes.
Good. That's a good one. Justin, is there any sign that you can give us that maybe were there, but parents or family members or friends just didn't notice?
I mean, when you start to see somebody isolate, for me, when I would go back to doing drugs or drinking, I would start to isolate. At first it was a social thing, and then it became a by myself thing. And I isolated a lot. If you have a family member that a son, a daughter, a niece or nephew that's living with you, or grandson or whatever, and granddaughter, and you're close with them, and you have conversations with them, but then now you're not, and it's starting to staying in their room, they're staying away from you, they're coming in the house later, so that they can avoid seeing you. I mean, those were all things that I did, I'd go get high, and then I'd wait for, when I thought, my mom or my dad was asleep or whatever, and then I'd come into the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally agree with Heather. Behavior. If you see people acting out of sort, or not people, but if you see somebody that you're close to, their behaviors change and their moods change.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possibility. Conversation needs to happen.
Well, what about this one? This was one that I noticed, that the friends that they keep.
Oh yeah,
that was a big hint. Because as you know, I know from my work in the past with working with gang members and people on the other side of the fence, I noticed I could tell who was selling by the people that came around them. Mm-hmm. So it goes both ways, Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really young kid told me that. He said, watch who comes around X, Y, and Z. And I said, wow, you can tell what they're selling too by the people that come around. So that's a big one, I think, especially for young kids. If they're not used to hanging around with, let's say, I'm just saying, I had a punk rock phase and I didn't do drugs. So I'm not saying that. But if I go from way left to people I know that are doing major drugs, either I'm looking to experiment or I'm going to be the savior and bring them all back. One of the two, right?
So, 9 times out of the 10, it's the first one.
Exactly. What about what can you do? Let's see. What can you do when these are some that were given to us. What can you do when your loved one is doing drugs and abusing alcohols? Like for a fact they are. Is there anything that you could tell us first, Justin, that this is what they could have done, or they couldn't have did anything? Because sometimes.
So because of what I've been through and the fact that, I didn't listen to anybody, yes, conversations do need to happen. And, you got to try to talk to that person. It's hard to explain. You got to try to talk to the person and get them to get some help, which isn't an easy thing to do, because if the person's not ready, it's not gonna take. And especially if you approach the person, from my own experience with myself, and then with dealing with others, like my little sister, if she was high or if I was high or whatever, and you accused me, or I felt that you were accusing me, it puts that person right on the defense. And then the whole conversation is dead. There's no point in even talking anymore, because the person's not going to listen to what you have to say, because now they feel like they're backed into a wall and they got to make every excuse to try to hide this secret that they're keeping, that they don't want their loved ones to know. But, just show the person love, and there's a thin line between love and enabling, obviously.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Tough love is a good thing, but you have to have a balance, you can't, and everybody's different. But tough love was something that worked for me. And, it worked and then it didn't work, but, it got me a little bit further. I still continued to make bad decisions and stuff. But now today, the tough love that my father had given me with throwing me out of the house and me being homeless, like, I look back on all that stuff today. And, I used to be very angry and resentful towards him for it, but I have a different, outlook and understanding of things now. He did what he had to do, number one, because he was trying to protect his son who he loved. And I couldn't imagine what a parent goes through when their child is an addict or an alcoholic. I haven't experienced that. And so he's trying to protect me, but then he's got to protect his household, or the mother and dad. They have to protect their household, and if they're siblings, they have to protect them too. And if you're volatile and doing bad things and whatever, and your younger siblings are there, you're, whether you like it or not, you're kind of a role model, and so the parent has to give some tough love. No parent wants to throw their kid out on the street, But you know what? Sometimes a kid needs that wake up call, especially if the kid's 30 years old. Kick him or her out on her ass. Okay, they're going to be okay, because it's going to force them to start thinking a little tiny bit different. You know, I have no home to go. Like I'm homeless. What do I do?
Right.
And you know, with doing that, you know, the parents or guardian or whatever, or friend or whoever, they need to stay in contact with that person and talk to that person. Right. I did what I had to do because this is what I have to do for my household. But I love you, and I'm here. If you want to go get some help or whatever, like I'm going to help you with that.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was done to me several times. You know, but I didn't have my father. You know, wasn't reaching out to me. We didn't talk. I was homeless and I was doing my own thing. So that's why I suggest to, you know, stay in contact with that person. If you have to, you know, kick them out of the house to jolt them, to wake them up a little bit, if that's going to save their life, then do it.
Right. Well, you just brought a question that I had for myself on family, Heather. Family plays a big role in addiction. Can you break that down just for a little bit for us? How I consider it like a big play when you deal with addiction, a big play, and everybody has a role. You know. So can you break that down just a little bit in your way for us?
Definitely. So from my experience, there's different families that take their different routes about it. I mean, a lot of times I'll say parents, for example, we'll use parents that have a child in addiction. And one of the biggest things I get is, you know, I don't want to be the enabler, but I also am their parent. So it's that fine line of, am I causing them to get worse and to use more because I'm enabling them, you know, giving them a place to live, or am I saving them? So a lot of family members I've witnessed will be worried about that backlash, or, you know, those judgments of, well, I have to do what other people think I have to do for my family member in addiction. But when in reality, I mean, every single situation is completely different. So I've seen where it works, like to give somebody a shelter, but that's it. So it's important to develop those boundaries with any family member. It's okay to help, but learn that enabling is going above and beyond when you know it's in front of your face.
Right. Well, what about, still on the note of family, I noticed that each family member takes on a different role. So, you know, if you have 3 siblings, there's going to be 4 different stories, theirs and the real one. So, you know, I find some may ignore it. Some will dress it head on. And then there's the ones that, they're on the fence, off the fence. They don't know what to do. So very important that each family member knows, I think just being aware and listening to speakers like yourself and like Justin, just that alone helps so much, because then you know what not to do. You know what I'm saying? And then, well, maybe I just need to sit this one out and just observe. And like you said, Justin, just keep in touch and figure out until they figure out and hit bottom. You can't, what they say, you take a horse, but you can't make them drink.
Never.
Sort of like.
Never. I can guarantee you with my experience, it never works that way. I have families that are, you know, trying to push, and they run the other way far.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I had a little joke or whatever about that. And it was, you know, how do you get an alcoholic or a drug addict to go right? Tell them to go left. They will always do the opposite, you know, and I know that to be true because I did everything opposite of what I was asked to do. You know, even with my sponsor, he would try to get me to do things, and I would totally try to go the other way. And thank God he was the man that he is, because he wouldn't let me. And you know, and that helped quite a bit. But you know, we do that when we're in active addiction. I mean, we're going to do the opposite of what our parents, counselors, you know, whoever is telling us to do.
Don't you think? I believe that is literally the drug. and the effect that is having on your brain and your, you know, your serotonin, all that stuff going up on there. I believe it really is, because I don't think nobody wants to, you know, go out and be in a drug house all night. Nobody wants to really do that. You know what I'm saying? So it takes your brain being dysfunctional that much to say, I'm ignore all the signs. It's sort of like, you know, like a kid walking to the edge of a cliff, and he has no idea what that death means. It's death to go down that cliff, but they'll walk, and just like a 2-year-old, right? If we took a 2-year-old to the edge of the cliff, he might be like, oh, let me see if I can fly, because he has no clue what that means. I feel like with addiction, it's like you're so it's so embedded in the brain process at that point that there's nothing, it just doesn't register, and that's okay.
It clouds all judgment, you know.
That's a good.
You know, it really does. It clouds all judgment. You know, at the beginning, you had asked Heather, you know, what she, you know, thinks, or how could she explain addiction? And I totally agree with her, obviously. But, you know, I truly believe that addiction is a mind, body, and spirit disease. And, you know, it affects this, you know, I think that the spirit, you know, affects the brain. The brain affects the body.
Absolutely.
So if you're not feeding your spirit with good things, and you're putting bad things into your spirit, and that's, you know, the euphoric feeling that the drug gives you, and then whatever bad things you're doing to get the drug, or while you're doing the drug, because your inhibitions go out the window and you don't, you know, you care less. You know, if you don't start to put some light and get your spirit better, it's going to be very, very hard. You know, I think the spirit is a big part, and at least for me, it was. Once my spirit, once I started filling my spirit with good things, the other things started to kind of fall in place. You know, the way I was thinking, then the way I was thinking transcended into, okay, now I'm going to go to the gym every day with my sponsor, and those kinds of things. And it also, you know, it had to do with the people I was surrounding myself with. I was surrounded by guys that were going to the gym, that are successful and want to be successful, and are working towards, you know, greatness and all of that. So I had all, you know, I had all that around me. So it definitely helped with the thinking part of the disease and everything like that. And you know, because especially that early on, being sober, you know, it could take one person or one bad thought stubbing your toe to bring you back out. You know, so I think strengthening the spirit is a very big part of it.
Yeah, someone said it on here. People, places, and things. I see. I see some of the comments. One of T said that. Wait, I'm trying to find her comment. She said that. Oh wow, I missed the comment. She had said, when you were saying tell them the opposite. She said, so tell them to use, so then they won't use. Maybe she was just,
yeah, we don't want to do that because exactly. That would be the only thing that you would tell them that they would do.
They won't listen to that. But let's see. Betty has a comment. She says people turn to drugs to numb the pain, and over time they have become addicted physiologically. Continue to crave. Thank you, Betty. That's a very good point.
I know.
Go ahead,
this comment I see here about the initial feeling, and then physical. I mean, like you just said, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know, I think I'm going to turn into a drug addict today. I think I'm going to do this. But there's two different aspects of it. A lot of times people turn to drugs because of mental health. Mental health is huge. So they feel this has numbed this emotion that I'm going through, that I went through trauma or whatever it is. This numbed it for now. So that worked. And then it becomes habitual. This keeps me from wanting to feel that emotional pain. And then it does become physical. It actually changes your biological brain, you know, makeup. I mean, I've looked at brain scans of different patients over time of different drugs, like, you know, heroin, crack, and things like that. And it's incredible, the changes like that you can actually physically see on these pictures. Yeah. And it just changes everything.
Yeah. What about this? So they say that if your father is an addict, that you have, I want to say 30% more chance of becoming an addict than versus, which I thought it was your mother, because my mother was a heroin addict. That's how come I got into the field of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, it's your father. My father wasn't an addict. So how interesting is that piece? But
I think it skips generations.
I was going to say, well, also, I don't want to put it out there. Like, I never put that out there. I learned that in school, but I kind of don't put it out there because it's like everyone thought because my mother was an addict, I'd be an addict. And I never been an addict. So, like you can't say, oh, well, this is the way. I believe that things are inherited because you do the same thing that your grandparents and your great grandparents did. You eat the same foods, you do the same thing, you deal with problems the same way. And if you do, then guess what? You'll probably get the same result. So that's why there's generational addicts, I believe, in a family, let's say, because they still never addressed whatever it is they need to address, So I don't know. What about this? Creating boundaries. How about that? What do you think? Creating boundaries. You can both big, very big, right?
It's a big deal. It's something that has to be done.
Yes.
Like,
so if I'm living at your house and I'm getting high, and you don't want to kick me out, you need to set boundaries, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But if it's already at the point where you're, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I said maybe not come in the house high.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some examples. What do you think?
I was going to say, the boundaries, if that person's already living with you and then you see the behaviors later, you obviously can't set them from the beginning.
Right.
But like you said, there's got to be like strict boundaries that are followed. And that could be, don't bring drugs into my household. Don't get high. But if somebody's in active addiction, those, what seems so simple tasks are extremely difficult for that person. So when you set those boundaries, it's very important to follow through with them with repercussions that you put out there in the beginning also. So if this happens, it's got to be black and white, straightforward. If this happens and you come into my home with drugs and I find them or under the influence, you're out. And there can't be that lenient, like, well, okay, because I can guarantee you it's going to happen again and it might be more dangerous the next time.
Absolutely. And what about Justin? Do you think there was anybody that really did set good boundaries that you can remember?
What in my household?
Yeah, that helped. Mm-hmm.
My household there was no boundaries. I mean, it was, my dad was wasn't around a lot, because of the DJ business and the audiovisual business. And when he was there, he was in his office trying to get more business. So he really didn't do much but like the discipline. And it would take for him to hear my mother screaming and yelling for 45 minutes at me or my sister for him to actually come upstairs and do something about it. Okay. But there was really no boundaries that I can remember. I mean, I knew, my mom gave me good morals, and growing up, a little bit in the church and stuff like that, and having a belief in God, and believing, the 10 Commandments and that kind of thing. It gave me a moral compass, and I knew right from wrong. But boundaries were probably non-existent in my household. I mean, I knew that I was supposed to do my homework when I got home, but I didn't. I knew I had to go to school every day, but I didn't. I would find ways out of it and skip and all that kind of stuff. And then, when my drug use got heavy or whatever, I found ways to get around whatever was set forth, by my father or whatever. A drug addict or an alcoholic is very good at hiding it for a while. Very good at hiding it for a while, but it doesn't last very long. Because those behaviors start to come out, and there's a difference in that person. Right. The person I was almost 2 years ago is totally different than the person I am today.
Absolutely. Well, someone says here, why don't you just call our early intervention if you love them? Why throw them out if make the situation worse? That was leading to my other question: is family intervention helpful? Can one of you respond to that?
Heather?
Go ahead, Heather.
What I would say to that, that's always an option. I know they have that show Intervention out there, all those different shows and stuff, but at the same time, when you look at like what Justin was saying, like if they don't want to stop, You can want it for them all day, but that family intervention sometimes can make them angry, can make them, intimidated, uncomfortable, embarrassed, and it can actually cause someone to run further the other way. And that's a fear too, because then they're in danger where now they're homeless because they don't want the treatment, but they also won't call you if they need help. So, I mean, but if the person is interested in help, like it's a conversation you have first, absolutely. If they do want sobriety, but they've just been uncomfortable to ask, then 100%. I mean, you got to know your family. And if that's the way to go, I think that could help them a lot.
Right. Well, that's, what about this one? Someone asked, please define a functioning addict. That's our least favorite
Take
word.
that one, Heather.
You want me to take that one? So,
a functioning addict or alcoholic is somebody that on the outside, on the surface, looks like everything's okay because they get up and they go to work, they pay all their bills, they have a family, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors and what that family is going through behind closed doors and what that person is going through behind closed doors. So that, a functioning alcoholic or an addict is somebody that, still gets up and does what they're supposed to do or what they think they're supposed to do. But it doesn't last. I mean, it can last for 20 years. It could last for 25 years. I've met guys in rehab that are 55, 60 years old and got money and college and the whole nine. And they functioned for 30, 40 years this way. And then the progression finally kicked in and they went down the tubes.
Yes. And there's some examples is Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson. I mean, we have tons of people over there in our face that had everything we thought and didn't really have the internal piece. So
that's the saddest part about it, because as a clinician, I honestly hate that term, functioning alcoholic, because I mean, that's what I've heard so many people say. Well, I'm functioning, and it's like, if you are at the point where you're in addiction, there's no way mentally and emotionally that you are functioning for yourself. It's a facade for everybody around you. So it's heartbreaking, and that's usually the ones that need, family help, family intervention, and family to show them like something's not right.
Right.
And the denial of, there's somebody that I know that is a functioning alcoholic, and they had a great job, the whole nine, but they don't think they have a problem.
Absolutely.
They think that they're on a high horse because they got this high paying job and whatever. And, they don't have a problem. They don't need any help or whatever. But then they're going to go home, 30 packs of beer, tonight, and then get up and do it all over again tomorrow. But it's only going to happen for so long before everything topples over.
That's right. Something will definitely topple over eventually. So if a person, this is another question, if you're knowing a person is high in your presence, should you ignore the fact or should you acknowledge to them how uncomfortable you are at that moment?
So, last time I shared my story and I shared a little bit about my coworker, Jamie, that had passed away from drugs. Jamie was at work with me a couple of nights, a few nights, those in that week and a half before she had passed away. And I knew something was off with her. I had a suspicion that she was high. I could pretty much guarantee that she was high. But I didn't want to confront her at work, and especially when she was high, because I know what's going to happen. It's going to be an argument. It's going to be a fight. And then, it's not something to be done at work. And I still feel guilty. I know that her death wasn't my fault or anything like that. I'm not blaming myself, but I feel guilty a little bit because I should have made it a point to go to where she was living and talk to her. And I didn't. I was, caught up with work and my life and whatever. And I was just like, I'll do it tomorrow or whatever. Tomorrow was too late. Same thing for our manager. Our manager saw something, her change and whatever. And my manager and I had spoken a couple of days before she had passed away. away on Saturday, the day before Friday, my manager was going to bring her in the office and talk to her and try to give her some help or tell her to get some help. But she had an emergency with her mom. Her mom's sick or whatever, so she had to rush out of the store, and she didn't have an opportunity. We feel bad, about that, because she's not here with us, and she was an amazing person. And I lost my train of thought, and I apologize.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, this is very helpful because now we know that if we do suspect someone that we love or care about is using, I personally would, I have offered and gone to meetings with people who I said, why don't you just try it? If it doesn't work, you can just keep getting high if you choose to, but just try it, So I personally, I follow my gut, especially if somebody's really heavy on my mind, because like you said, you never know what they're going through. Like that's just in general. Even about drugs, even with just suicide, you don't know what someone's going through. So if I see you're down and I know you and I know you're not usually down, I'll say, hey, Justin, what's up? You know what I'm saying? I'll try to call you. But there's times where you're busy, like life is happening for you and you're like trying to just stay above water. So don't feel bad. It happens. But to our viewers, if you see it, try to address it. Try to do what you can.
I totally agree with you. And what I've learned from that situation is that if I am in fear of somebody that I love and I care about, that I see that their behavior is different, or I think that they're, or I pretty much I know if somebody's high. Right. I've done it. I was in the drug and alcohol game for a long time, and I pretty much know. I can feel it as well as if that, God forbid, happens again in my life, I'm not going to wait. I'll talk to when I talk to see what their suggestions are, but I'm going to try to immediately address what's going on with that person in the best way possible. And that's why I would talk to guys in my sober network. I'd call Heather and ask her. I can't let that happen, or not that I can't let that happen again. I don't want that to happen again. So I feel that it's necessary for me to say something. If I'm worried about somebody, there's a way that you can talk to people, and there's an approach that you can take where it's not, confrontational, and you can make it so that they know that you're not accusing or whatever. It's hard. And that situation was very hard. I really didn't know what to do, and I was afraid for her, but I also didn't want to screw the job up for her, and whatever. There were lots of thoughts that came to mind in that situation, and I wish I would have done different. I could have reached out to Heather and talked to Heather and whatever, and maybe that maybe it would have changed things. Maybe it wouldn't have. We don't know.
Well, I think when it is people's time, it is their time, no matter what we do.
I was just going to say that.
I hate to say that, but I'm really big on that. And I mean, there's also the side of listening to your gut. That's true. But sometimes, I had a friend and we tried to intervene, but he still did suicide. So, I believe when it's time, they're going no matter what we say or do. We're only here for a short period of time. And what you're doing now by helping other people, by sharing your story and enlightening people, that's saving thousands of lives. Even if you don't know it and you don't see it, to me, that's way more important than.
That's what I want to do. I want to,
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it.
If I can just touch one person's life, that's enough for me. I'm a firm believer in, what everything happens for a reason, but what happened, what was supposed to happen. Right. I also believe that things aren't happening to me; they're happening for me. And that's a big deal. Because when you come from a place where you're drug addicted and whatever, and you're in that state of mind and that horrible spiritual state and physical state, you're blaming everybody else for your problems. It's
Right.
my mom's fault. It's my dad's fault.
Right.
It's the dog's fault. Oh my God, I stubbed my toe. It's the coffee table's fault. I'm accountable today. I don't blame anybody for what I've done in my past. I'm accountable for everything that I've done.
Right.
And it feels good to be accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Heather, so I can't believe how quick time is going, but I have a couple more and I'm going to extend it. What do you do if a relapse does occur? How do you keep the spirit of disappointment out of the conversation?
The spirit of, what was that? I didn't hear that.
Of like, so if I'm disappointed in the family, I'm like, oh, so you relapse again.
Oh, okay.
Instead of that, what is a nice way to approach it?
So what we say, because obviously I've seen repeat offenders. I mean, I do this every day. So for years now. So, when I see them, there's always that look in their face of, I've asked for help, but I'm embarrassed. So I can guarantee you they are already very embarrassed. But the fact that they're there asking for help, what I say a lot is, it's okay that this happened, but it's also not okay. That's the famous line of it's okay because, we're human, but it's not okay, meaning get back up on the horse and let's go. The best advice is just get that person to keep pushing forward, because if the disappointment factor, if we put our feelings on them that, oh, we're disappointed, upset, and they could feel that, it's not going to help them get sober because they're beating themselves up more than anybody can.
Okay. That's true. What about, oh wait, I'm sorry. What about, what was it? When, if you have a family member, right? Let's see, if you have a child or a spouse in addiction, how do you handle the backlash from other people who judge you and think that you're enabling them? So let's say, I guess that would be that's in a scenario if if you were helping a kid and they're standing there and you have boundaries, but they don't know that. And they're like, oh, so yeah, she just helps her son all the time. I don't know why she doesn't just kick him out. Those type of people.
So for the parents that are worried about dealing with that, this might sound like a straightforward answer, but I honestly hate to say it this way, but it's basically nobody's business. So when it comes down to, what we talked about, there's a difference in enabling and actually helping that person, because cutting somebody off who's in addiction to where you don't speak to them, don't help them, is the worst thing you can do. You've got to be available, because when that person wants the help, you should be, if you care about them, you should be the one ready to help them. And what I've learned too, because I have also very close family to me for years. So even before working in the field, it's been years and years, like basically since I was a kid, where, I would help people to the right direction for help and kind of guide them and just be close to these people. I learned to not take it personal. So in addiction, you can't take it personal. Even when I'm working with somebody, they're not relapsing because of me.
Right.
They're not relapsing to hurt me. And even though it may feel like that sometimes, you have to get that out of your head and drill yourself, whether it's to pray, if that's your, if that helps you, or whatever it is, ask for help. But as far as that backlash, I definitely would say every situation is different. And if you have those boundaries, you can't let someone else's opinion, if you know you're doing the right thing by giving shelter to somebody, as long as those boundaries are working, you've got to just let it slide. You've got to let it slide.
Let it slide. Well, the last question I guess I'll have, no, there's two actually. I have two more and then we'll wrap it up. How much does shame play in addiction for families? Perhaps like they have a, very religious family. I've seen that where they're like, you can't tell the father that, or you can't tell the priest that, or the rabbi. Like, oh my God, you're going to embarrass the family. So they sweep it under the rug and try to hide, bob and weave. How would you deal with that?
It's the worst thing that you could do. It's the absolute worst thing that you could do. I'm a part of a program that's anonymous, but I refuse to be anonymous, because my view is that if I'm anonymous and people don't know what I've been through, and they don't know that I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, which I'm very proud of, okay, because it's made me who I am, and I think I'm a good person today, and I love the man that I see in the mirror today, and I don't think in a mystical way. I can't help anybody if I'm anonymous. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm out forefront. I'm Justin. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. This is what I've been through, and this is what I'm doing now. And if I can do it, anybody else can do it. So for a family that is sweeping it under the rug, you are doing a disservice to that person and a disservice to your family. Stop caring what other people think, because what other people think don't matter. They're not living your life. They're not living in your home. You have to do what's right for you and your family. And you don't want to wake up in the morning and find your loved one dead.
Because of you being afraid of shame. That's
Okay.
exactly what I was going to say.
Thank
Putting that shame above your love for that person that's the kind of result that it can come to. So it's not, you got to think the truth. It's not worth it.
That's very powerful stuff. Very
Because
powerful.
if real quick, if damn, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Hold on. If you allow somebody's opinion, okay, to control what you do, you know, that it's a terrible thing. It really is. I mean, you have to take your, you know, this is what I've learned. I have to take my life into my own hands. You know, yes, I have people that support me and that I talk to about my decisions and what I'm doing, because I'm still learning how to be an adult. Yeah, of course, 100%. But I've taken my life in my own hands, and I'm moving forward. Yeah, it's a slow and steady for me, but if that's what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done. You know, it's all in God's time, and that's how I view things. And some days I take it 1 second at a time, and other days it's 1 day at a time. You know, we all have good days, we all have bad days. You know,
Absolutely.
There's days where I'm not all smiley and bubbly, and that's a problem for some people around me. They're like, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?"
You're not allowed.
Chill. I'm okay not being okay today.
Right.
You know. So.
Well, that leads me to the other question of I call it guilt and hostage takers. You've ever had family hostage takers, Heather? You ever had to deal with those people that I call them family members that now that the person is sober, they come up with, they were so used to all the chase that the addict went through that now they're going to regurgitate it back onto the addict who's now in recovery. So it's like, or they do things that make you feel like you're back at stage one again. So like maybe I'll hide my pocketbook and I'm like, it's been 2 years since I've been sober. I'm not thinking about your pocketbook, but put it out there. I mean, you know, but you know, I call them hostage takers and guilt. What do you do about that? Like, how do you handle that? You
so what I teach and go over a lot is one of the biggest, I won't say biggest, but one of the most common symptoms to relapse. I talk about those a lot, different behaviors and different feelings we may go through that can trigger a relapse faster. One of them is worrying about other people and what other people think and taking others' inventory. So what I talk about is emotional resilience. So as in an early recovery, when someone's in early recovery, it's so important. I'm sure Justin can vouch for this too. It's so important to have that emotional resilience where, you know what, hide your purse. And I hate, like I said, because what is the point in battling that?
Right.
And maybe you shouldn't go there again. If you know that relative is still feeling that way after the fact that you've been sober for 2 years, they may always feel that way. And that could be something in their insecurities, you know, but we can't expect others to change because we have.
Yes.
And that's their behaviors, not ours. So it's important to have your own emotional resilience and know that that's on them. And, you know, I live my life that way too every day. So, you know, people don't like certain things. That's on them. I know that I do things the right way, and I know that I live to help others, and that's it. It's all I can promise.
That's it. And that's all.
Can I just say something real quick on that? You know, for me, you know, I've burned a lot of bridges. You know, all of us drug addicts and alcoholics, we have. You know, my situation with my 16-year-old daughter is my older sister has her, and I shared about that last time I was on.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter's having some issues with her emotions and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, and it has to do with the fact that she doesn't know her real dad and her real mom. And my older sister's husband is a very unforgiving person. I'm not going to say that he's a bad man, because he's not, because he allowed my sister to take my daughter in almost 15 years ago and has raised my daughter, has taking care of my daughter. He took her on a camping trip last night. I mean, he has his issues or whatever, but he's been a good man and a good father to my daughter, and has went above and beyond for a child that's not his. So I got a text message yesterday from my older sister saying, "Hey, can you contact Sadie's mother? Because my husband has agreed that we can have a supervised visitation so that Sadie can ask some questions and get some closure, because my sister telling her these things isn't helping her. She needs to hear from, the people that gave her away, pretty much, and wanted to know. So, I went to see my daughter today, and I haven't been in my older sister's house in 15 years, about 15 years.
Wow.
Okay. And I was at her house with my daughter, with my daughter's mother. And we had a great conversation. There was some crying, there was some laughter. My daughter had a list of questions that she asked me and her mother, and it was great. As emotional as I had gotten at some points, it was great. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I owe that to recovery. I owe that to sobriety. So what I was saying about that was, I'm not taking offense that my older sister's husband will not be in the house while I'm there, because he can't forgive what I did.
Exactly. I got you.
And that's not my problem.
Right.
That's his issue. I know what I'm doing, and I know that I'm working at being a better man every day, and working on being there for my daughter in any way that I possibly can. And that's his issue. I can't let that deter me from my purpose and from what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Is it upsetting? Yeah, it's a little upsetting, but I also believe that the more time that I keep making my life better and keep changing for the better, more people are going to see that, and more people are going to come back into my life. My father's brother wanted nothing to do with me. Sent him a text message to come to dinner. He declined, and understandably, I get it. His son is young. He was close with my little sister. He was at the service. He took it very hard, and there's some fear there. Well, if I allow Justin back in my life and in my son's life, is he gonna relapse like he's been doing for 25 years? Or is he really on the right path this time? So he reached out to my older sister and asked my older sister, and she told him that I'm doing good, and she gave me a very good compliments, and so he'll probably be reaching out to me at some point over the next few weeks or next few months, and we're going to get together for coffee, hopefully.
Right.
But these are, I can't let him feeling that way cause me to relapse.
Right.
Just because I got sober doesn't mean that everybody's view changed of me, because I did a lot of screwing around and a lot of screwing people over. So it's going to take a lot of time for those people to see the change, the psychic change.
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people think, well, look, I'm better now. Like everybody's supposed to be on the same page. It's like, no, I'm still stuck in your addiction phase, and I can't get out.
and also, you got to look at. I kind of look at it this way too. I went to treatment. I have a gift and a blessing of a 12-step program in my life. Okay. I have the blessing of having faith and believing in a higher power. So just because I have those things, not everybody else does.
Absolutely.
Not everybody else is viewing the world that I view in the way that I view the world now, in the way that I view my life and all that kind of stuff. So just because I'm starting to change and I'm doing these things doesn't mean that these other people have done them. When you have a loved one that is a drug addict or an alcoholic, you really need to seek professional help, like Al-Anon or therapy or something like that. Because while your loved one is in treatment and getting help, they're learning new things.
Yes.
You need to do the same thing so that you can help them to help stop them from relapsing.
Brilliant.
I was going to bring up Al-Anon.
Yes, you went right into my other.
Al-Anon.
I love that. We're like on the same psychic path here. I was like, you just summed it all up. What I was just about to ask next.
God is always working. That's all I got to say.
Always working. I mean, that's just amazing. Everything you said is absolutely on point, and that is key for a family. If you're listening and you have a family member who has gotten help and you haven't gotten any help, it's going to be very challenging for you, let's just say. Even though
addiction is a family disease.
Yes.
It's a family disease. Everybody's suffering in that household. Everybody's suffering that loves that person.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so when that person decides, okay, I'm done with this life, I really need to get help, and starts to come out of that denial or whatever it is, that fight to not get help,
right,
and they decide to do it, then those family members need to do it because they are damaged too.
Mm-hmm.
They've been hurt and damaged by the disease of addiction, even though they're not the ones, that have it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just, you're on point. I can't even. It's like you answered all the questions I had next, which is brilliant. Because even T said we can't expect others to change because we have. I love that, and I love that too. It's so prevalent. You don't hear it often.
I tell people that every day.
You do, right?
Yes,
I did when I was in the field.
Justin tell you.
Yep. Family Day was my favorite because I was like, okay, sit down. Let me tell you something. Most people are like, oh, wow, yes. Oh, so in recovery. So they think that's like the magic goal that everything in the family is going to mend back and we're going to be like the perfect Brady Bunch. Not quite. It's like we got a little more work to do. And it's called you got the work to do now because you can't, it's uneven. It's like even in like abusive relationships, if the partner goes and gets the woman goes to the hospital and gets help, if he didn't go to therapy, and then if he goes to therapy and she didn't go to therapy too, it's still always going to be uneven. It's going to be all over the place, and that's so important. You said that.
Everything is balance. It's a balance. Heather. I heard Heather say that a lot.
Heather, that was her quote. Sorry, Heather. I took your quote. We unstole it.
For everybody.
Heather is one of the people that helped me save my life. I'm very grateful to be able to call her a friend and to be able to talk to her, whenever I need to. She's always there. So when she says that, like, she lives a life of service, she really does.
I believe it.
Like,
I
really
does.
Does.
Clearly. You, Heather, when we wrap it up, do you have anything? Do you want to give any advice? Both of you just give like maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice to someone. Anything from, the first step of intervention. Is it hospital, rehab, or call a number? I have one I'm going to put up here, actually. I'm going to try to type it up while you talk. Go ahead.
So just to sum it up, basically, I would say if you have a family member who's close to you that needs help, first thing is if they're not acknowledging it and they're high around you, they may want you to acknowledge it. So that is something that we were talking about also is it's okay to one-on-one speak to that person. The first step to the intervention would be just saying, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. And a lot of times that person might need detox. And then I would definitely from detox recommend another program, whether it's one-on-one care, whether it's going into a 28-day program, long-term program, whichever it is. And then it's literally step by step, all these things. The major thing when you're in early recovery as that person and as the family is going to be mental health. I push that consistently. Mental health. Even I push mental health, and Justin will tell you, I push mental health appointments before I even push I want, people to do addiction service appointments, meetings, 100%. But the first thing I always recommend someone is before you return home, have your appointments set up. Have a therapist that you can vibe with or that you're willing to try to vibe with and have that appointment set for within like the first week that you return home. Okay. And as a person who's in addiction, the best thing to do is to make connection with something other than the substance too in early recovery. So make connections. Isolation is a huge trigger. Yes. And just be willing. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Justin, do you have a couple of things that you want that you can give a hint or clues?
Yeah. So for the addict that's still sick and suffering, an alcoholic that's still sick and suffering that may be listening, I hope you have some hope. Hope stands for hold on, pain ends. And that is very true because my pain ended. and you know, and I've been through a lot this past year, and I'm not experiencing anything. I'm sad and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But the other thing I want to say to anybody that's in active addiction or alcoholism is the opposite of addiction is connection. So when you get sober and you make those connections with the people in the rehab, and you know, there may be one or two that's going to be going to the same place that you're going, or in the same town that you're in. Go to meetings together. When you go to those meetings, use those numbers that are given to you, that are written down in the book, because every meeting, if there's a newcomer in there, we are passing a book around with a bunch of guys' numbers for the men and a bunch of women's numbers for the men. The other thing I'm going to say is for when you're in early recovery, the key thing is men with the men and women with the women.
Yes.
I didn't start dating anybody until I was done with my steps. I was about 6.5, 7 months clean, or clean sober.
Right.
And, you know, and even then, you know, it wasn't tough or anything like that, but, you know, my history, me looking back on all my relapses and all of that stuff, there was usually a female involved, you know, and I know that, you know, and, you know, for women, it could be a man.
Right.
A lot.
That's usually who brings you to the addiction is a woman or a man. So depending on who you are, it's like, how'd you get into it? So it's always, well, this guy, or if it's a guy, it's like this girl.
Yep. I mean, I can honestly say, you know, I was brought into addiction because of me, because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, because I was trying to fit in, and the way to fit in, you know, with these people was to smoke a little bit of pot, or to, you know, to drink 40s or whatever it was.
Right.
You know, so, but my relapses, though, it usually consisted of a girl that I was dating before I got some help. And another thing I want to say is if you're willing to go get help, don't half-ass it, because half measures avail is nothing. If you're going to go to detox, you need to do the 28-day program. Because I was in detox 15 times before I actually went to rehab.
Okay.
You know, and it never did me any good. It made it so I wasn't sick. Right. But then what happens 2 weeks later when I don't have a foundation of 12 steps and knowledge about myself as an alcoholic and an addict?
That's why it was important to have you on, because you're you know, the experience you're talking from, and that you keep it so 100% real, that people, you know, all the games that can be played with this, but the fact that you went so many times and you've got it right. So I want someone out there to say, well, I tried 10 times. I'm just going to give up. Don't give up, because it might be 20 times.
Number 11.
Yeah, exactly.
You
know,
so, and you know, Heather can tell you when Heather met me, I was on my way out.
Yes.
I was 160 pounds. I looked like death, probably. But I didn't know how to. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to do, and because I was so far down, I knew that the only way was up. Right. And being in the program that I was in with counselors like Heather, I utilized that. I was looking for direction and finding. I mean, Heather and I think my first meeting with Heather, I was in tears, crying like a baby, because I was so lost and I didn't know. And thank God for her, because she helped me a lot. And all the counselors that were there helped me tremendously. But at the end of the day, it was up to me. It was in my hands. It was up to me.
And now you're helping others. And that's what happens. That's what works.
And that's the most important part, that you're helping others. You guys, I appreciate you so much. I know the time has winded up, and even the baby's on there. Hello, how are you? So I want to hello the little man there. That's our future. It's Zoom. It's okay. But I want to thank you both, Heather and Justin, for taking the time to come and help our viewers understand addiction, at least this much, enough that now, if you never know when you're going to encounter somebody who's on the drugs, especially with the COVID going on, people at home isolating more and doing more. It's crazy right now. So I know like 10 people who died of addiction last year. I mean, it's crazy. Just
Yeah.
just me, little old me.
Mommy,
That's why I thought it was important for us to do this and have two different perspectives. Well, three, because I've been in the field over 15 years, but three different perspectives so that people can see, this is something that don't give up on your loved one. Don't give up. You don't never know when that moment will hit that they say, this is it. This is the day where I'm done. I saw the light, and this is, you don't know why that happens either, but it happens. And I want people to keep hope. So for anybody that's out there, we're going to say goodbye to Justin and Heather, but I want you to remember, I'm going to leave a number that you can call. I know the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence in White Plains is very good for referrals. Their number is 914-949-8500. And then there's 1-877-8-HOPE. New York is it's a text. You can text that number now. Have you heard of that, Heather? It's like you text.
Yeah, text for help. There's also one that's not just New York, like the hotline. If you want, do you have that one?
Yeah. Do you know
So
it?
that one is the SAMHSA National Helpline. 1-800-662-4357.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So if you're not sure of the number, you can inbox me. I'll be more than happy to give it to you. But for now, we thank you guys for such a great show. I see a lot of comments over here. Thank you guys, Betty, Andrea, Wanda. Thank you guys, T, Anthony.
Thanks for having us.
Mommy.
They're all saying thank you, great show, Anthony.
Thank you, everybody.
Wanda. Yes, thank you guys so much for.
Thank you, Tanya.
And we'll catch you next time. Anytime we're talking about addiction, we'll be calling you guys up.
Please do.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you
Just gonna wait
soon.
for that book.
God bless everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.